Hey folks, it's Yuri Housewall, GOO's Elite Athlete Manager, and I'm here at GOO HQ having a first of its kind conversation with the Sports and Operations Director of Cynisca Cycling, a professional women's development program that GOO has been working with for a few years. And in light of the Tour de Femmes that is coming up in August, we wanted to sit down and have a conversation with this amazing program that is helping develop the next generation of professional women's racers. So, Robin, welcome.
Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to chat all things cycling, women's cycling, goo, all the things.
I look forward to it. So, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about how did Cynisca, a team dedicated to empowering women in sports with a mission to help athletes reach the top tiers of cycling, come to be? What's the team's origin story?
Yeah, so the team really started in 2022. Um, Chris Katowski, longtime cycling lover, has been involved in some teams like Garmin way back when. Has a good friend, Jeff Jones, who they went to IU together and they were all involved in the Little 500, the Cutters, Breaking Away. They were in that movie as extras. And so I think they realized that this was the time to really put some focus and energy and resources into women's cycling, especially with like the the Tour de France Femmes starting. That was like a huge impetus for really understanding that women's cycling can go to the next level. And I think there was a real desire to put some energy into USA women's cycling. So taking some talent and taking them to the best, biggest races in Europe and really like creating a foundation for that and for a foundation for developing young women into the best racers in the world.
Awesome. I love the historical reference there to the Cutters and Breaking Away. I mean,
Yeah.
those cycling fans like ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Geeks, right? Know that movie as a classic that really inspired folks here in the USA. Well,
Yeah.
actually shone a light on the little 500 that happened, but then inspired so many folks to embrace road racing. Speaking of road racing, you
Yeah.
were the 2011 USA National Road Race Champion and went on to have a successful professional racing career that took you to Europe. So I'm wondering, how do your prior racing experiences influence or affect the way you interact with your riders as the team's sports and operations director?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, as an athlete, as a competitor, I think one of the natural progressions for women who get out of the sport is to look at the sport and say, do I want to be a director? Do I want to stay in the sport? Because a lot of women now are doing that, right? We see it. Carmen Small's an example. Our director, Jillian Elsay, who is young but has a lot of cycling under her belt. We look at the sport and we say, I'm not ready to give it up completely yet. Yes, the weekly bike rides are fun, but we feel like now more than ever we have something to give back to the sport, whether it's knowledge, whether it's, energy of like what we experienced and how we can help develop the next future of women's cycling. And so I think there's a couple things that kind of take place as you kind of transition from a racer to director to operations. For me, I love the chaos that operations provides. I did a little directing and I still direct every once in a while, but we have Jillian to do that and Billy Ennis. And so I feel like our team is in good hands when they're away, when they're racing. But for me, the operations is just so interesting. We've got, logistics happening in the US. We've got logistics happening in Europe. We've got staffing on two continents. The riders are all going through the hardships of the ups and downs of cycling and, trying to manage all of that with the expectations of our sponsors is just really exciting. And it's also like, it changes every day. And I feel like that's something that's like really fun, and I can't stress enough, like I hope there's positions moving forward in the sport for more women to transition from racing to owning a team or directing or general manager. I mean, that's hopefully where I'll go after this, as the team progresses. And so, I think as a former athlete and someone who really loves the sport and has seen it, you're looking for certain qualities like, teamwork, passion, the desire to try something new and be okay with failing and getting up and doing it again. We look at just having fun. Cycling is such a serious sport that you've got to be able to like hang out with your teammates, we played Cards for Humanity last week when I was in France with the team, and it was hilarious. There was like a group of 9 of us sitting around, and I mean, maybe staff could be there, maybe not, but we just do that, because you've got to have that camaraderie, and you've got to grow the relationship off the road, right? So if you're going to trust somebody to do the job in the race, you got to know that they have your back, like just sitting around and like, in life. And I think that's really important. Is I feel like this team, like all teams probably, we're teaching like life lessons, right? Like, how do you overcome adversity, whether that's a race or just like the logistics of putting Americans in Europe for like their first time ever is almost hilarious. You should see some of the like things that we've just dealt with, and just like coming up with their living situation, or, just how to navigate a different country. So, it takes a lot of patience on both ends, like nothing is perfect and no team is perfect. But I think, in our second year, we've really like smoothed a lot of things out, and we're like flowing really nicely. And it's fun because I think now we're actually digging into the performance side, where the first year we were just trying to keep the wheels moving. And so, now we do look at performance. We do look at like what's happening in the race, and, having that experience as a former racer is really important, because you see, and unfortunately, women's cycling is still sink or swim. There's not a ton of development that's in place yet, and we're trying to change that. But it is becoming a little bit, you have to look and say, is this a rider that's going to be able to, get dropped 14 times in one race and fight back and come back tomorrow and be just excited to get dropped 10 times?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think it's like things like that. You really just kind of, you realize what it takes as a racer to make it. And I think we see that. I mean, there's a lot of talent coming up in the US and all over the world. People are so excited about women's cycling because there is an end game. Like back when I was racing, it was the Olympics or bust, right? And now the racing is so great. The World Tour is at a high level, and Tour de France this year is probably going to be one of the best, races out there.
Yes.
Men and
Amen.
women. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So you mentioned you were in Europe. I'm wondering, why is it important for your team to have a European base? Because you race also obviously in Europe, but the US, but why is it important to be based in Europe?
well, I mean, let's just be honest. The center of cycling is in Europe, right? I mean, it's where it started. It's where all the big races are. It's just centrally located. And so for our team, who doesn't have a world tour team budget, we have to put our riders in places that they can get to the races within a few hours. And so Europe is that place. I mean, I would love to say that the US has the racing it had 10 to 15 years ago, where the teams were coming over, the stage races were filled, you had plenty of racing, but that is just not the case right now. And we do want to change that. But until that happens, we've got to be in Europe, because that's where the competition is. That's where the fan base is right now. And we just feel like it's actually more affordable for our team to be in Europe and stay there and do all the races than it is for us to come to the US and bounce around and hit races like every, 3 to 4 weeks, which is tough. So, yeah, I mean, we have to be in Europe because that's where it's at. And, I hope that we can one day look back and say, there is racing in the US, and we're happy to nurture that. But for now, it's like we've got our eyes on the prize, and the eyes on the prize is Women's Tour de France, the Olympics in 2028. And so to do that, we're going to base our team there. We are going to come back and forth. We obviously come back for the spring campaign. We came back for nationals. But right now, our riders have been there since mid-June, and they'll stay there till October.
Wow,
Living the
thank you.
dream.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges facing women's cycling today, and how does Cynisca Cycling aim to address these challenges while capitalizing on opportunities within the sport?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think we hear a lot about it. So, you look at what's happening in women's sports around the world, right? You've got Caitlin Clark in basketball. You've got the Williams. You've got tennis. It's like everything can sell tickets except for cycling. So we try to figure out, and I think this is one of the issues, is like, how can we maximize and I guess expose our athletes so people want to be fans of our sport, right? So if you don't know the players, then how can you get behind a sport? And it's like, we need to Unchained for the women's cycling peloton, right? Like what Netflix did for the Tour de France with putting Unchained on was awesome. And so I think it is truly just about exposure. When you're talking to sponsors, big sponsors who can really help move the needle forward with teams, they look for return on investment. And right now, it's like, small teams like Cynisca that want to grow and make it to the next level. We are really trying to maximize our exposure, by when we get a win, when we get a national championship, it is like it's spewing it out there to the world. We really try to like put everything out there in social media. We try to engage our athletes. Like this past week in France, we had an open house at the Chateau. We had all our riders there. They're engaging with sponsors, friends of the team, potential sponsors. So I think it really is just about getting the word out and giving opportunity to be seen. I think anybody who has watched women's cycling in the past couple of years, the World Tour, they see that it is like it's exciting, it's aggressive. It is everything that men's cycling is. It's just not televised as much. And so I think, for Cynisca, we are talking to some investment groups, like the big ones that support tennis and basketball and soccer. And it's like it's a little bit of a fight right now to get them to grab onto cycling because they look at all of the things, all the return on investment, and they're just like, well, can you sell some more tickets? And it's like, well, one day maybe, but so I think that is probably the biggest challenge that we're facing, and just like I think it's getting people who love cycling to get involved in teams. I mean, as much as I would love to say the corporate list of sponsors is long, it's not that long, right? Because it takes that process is 6 months to a year to get teams going. So we really do look for individual people who are still like in love with the sport, that want to see women's sports thrive. Women who own companies. Those are the people that we really try to get in front of, and we will continue to do that because we find that is the outlet right now. Until we can get some more exposure on TV, it's just the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit here. Considering the competitive nature of cycling, what are some like key performance indicators that you prioritize when you're assessing, right, the potential of future riders?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, it's
Yeah.
like as a competitor, as a former racer, I'm doing a lot of interviews right now, and I actually love this part of my job. It is so fun. So, and I think it's easier as an interviewer to talk to the interviewee. I have a list of questions that I really ask, and then I always throw like three curveballs at them. Like, and I even do it with our own riders. So, our current team that we still have, and we're bringing people back. I sit down with each of them. I ask them questions, and I ask them hard questions. So, you know, for me, I look for adaptability because I think that is huge in our sport. And you don't really know if someone's adaptable until you throw them in the mix. And that is the one hard part. I talk to a lot of women who are so excited about racing in Europe and think that is the path they want to take. And we've gambled on a couple and we put them over there, and it is not what they want. So I think adaptability is a huge thing, right? You got to be able to roll with the punches. I mean, as a professional athlete, and you have to be dialed, right? Like your nutrition has to be spot on, your rest, your recovery. Well, it doesn't always happen like that, right? And you have to be able to not have a breakdown, keep your composure, and keep rolling with the punches, right? So I definitely look for that. And I always ask a person, like, it's kind of like a job interview. Tell me a time where you've overcome adversity,
Yeah.
because I like to hear that. You know, we do look for people who are coachable because I think that's a huge quality that not everybody has. And you don't really know that until you really dig into them as a person. You know, we allow everybody to have their own coaches because that's just easier for the team. But then, when you're on the road, when you're in the race, you have to be able to listen to your other teammates, to your director, and respond in a way that's positive for the team. So coachability, willing to accept, you know, what what's given as a direction, as a job for the day. And I think that goes along with teamwork, right? So this is as much as cycling sometimes feels individualistic, it is absolutely not. And it's absolutely not at the highest level. We watch the Tour de France daily. You see people sacrificing, you see people going back for bottles. And it is the same where we are. It's like you have to be able to like sacrifice for your teammate on any given day when the plan changes. And so, a team atmosphere. And what we're finding is like, I find like athletes that came from different sports really adapt to this well, right? cycling takes a special kind of like a special kind of talent because it is just solely suffering. But when you throw that into a team atmosphere and background of team sports is really helpful. I played a bunch of team sports before I found cycling, and I was like, that's what drew me to the sport because it's multidimensional in the way that you handle and win races. It's like there's so many things happening, but you have to work together. And so those are just a few things. I mean, performance is super important. We do look at the numbers,
I was
you
going to
know.
ask, yeah,
Yeah,
physiological or other sort of biomarkers or things like that that you guys take into consideration, power to weight ratio,
of
stuff like
course.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, and these days, writers are smart. They go ahead and send you that information up front. And then sometimes you're like, is this for real? Because if this is for real, I'm going to sign for tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I think writers are savvy these days. They know what you're looking for. We do look for numbers. And then we also look for, what does our team need? So, if we're lacking a second sprinter, or if we need a climber, if we need just a domestique that's willing to like go out there every day and bury themselves with not a whole lot of like return, we look for specificity. And so, right now unfortunately, there are a lot of riders on the market. DNA folded this past week, which is super, super sad, but I give them so many props. I mean, Kathy and Alex have put their heart and soul into DNA for 12 years and they're just tired. And I get that. It's an exhausting sport, but it's left a lot of high quality riders on the market. And so, we just go through and we're like, we ask a lot of questions like what's the synergy for us, like what are we looking for and what type of rider, person, teammate are we looking for. So a lot goes into
Yeah.
it. And I'm not the only one doing interviews. We've got Jillian doing interviews, Billy, so it's a group effort because what I see, if I see something, they might see something different. So we come back to a round table and we just really work on like what we think is a good fit for the team.
Yeah. So for folks who don't maybe totally understand all of this too, are there like tryouts? Do you then, once you have these interviews, right? Do
Yeah.
riders come and, audition, let's say, for the team so you can actually see them perform in person? Just curious.
Yeah, so we actually do because we are lucky. So we have a service course in the Pyrenees, in the foothills of the Pyrenees, right outside of Toulouse. And so, like this past week, I had a couple riders come and ride and like be with the team. It's like they're not called tryouts, but they're like, how do you gel or how do you fit with our team? And it's an opportunity for me to sit down with people, talk really like what does this look like for you? What are you committed to? I mean, I can tell you, like, we're looking for people who are okay being in Europe for 6 to 8 months next year, which is a long time, especially if you're a little bit older in your career, right? It's like, it gets messier the older you get. So right now, we have a flock of young riders who are just willing to like throw it up and just throw their hands up and just come to Europe, which is awesome. So yes, we do have tryouts. And then in the fall, like we are doing a little bit of a talent ID camp because Cynisca next year is changing a little bit. We're having a two-pronged approach. And we're doing this for a couple reasons. One, because we want to take the next step up. So we've been a UCI Continental team for the past 2 years. And this next year, we're ready to go to pro team. So that's a new category right under the world tour. So it's this like next tier that's going to bump us up. So when there are spots available in world tour races, they're going to look to the pro team first. And so we decided to make that investment. We're going to have 10 riders on that pro team that are really going to be focused on the big races, racing in Europe. And then we're building an 8-person roster Conti team that will keep the development side. So they'll race in the US, they'll do gravel, they'll race crits, and then they will also be available to be called up, just like baseball, the
Yeah.
minor leagues, the big leagues, it's a call up. It's like when we think you're ready and when we need to fill you in or we need to give you an opportunity, we're going to fill that spot with riders from our Conti team. So it's really exciting right now because, I feel like the way that we can continue Cynisca culture and develop riders that we want is like to have our own development team. And the men's teams do it, they have their feeder teams. And I feel like now's the time to do that with the US, especially with like, there's just a bunch of talent out there and we want to be able to provide jobs and opportunities for riders like that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, can you explain a little bit to folks who may not understand? I'm going off script here a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when you make this step to pro, that now means you are possibly right able to be selected to join some world tour races,
Yeah.
which is the ultimate level, correct? Maybe you could
Yeah.
give a
It's
clearer picture of that.
for sure. Yeah. That decision was solely based on the fact that we want to be at the Tour de France Femmes no later than 2026 and maybe next year with this opportunity. So we see the vision, right? And we know where we have to go. And so by to get there, we have to do bigger races. This year we've gotten into a lot of races, a lot of a lot of the very good races and high level races. But that pro team status will ensure that we get invites to probably 1.1s, 2.1s, and then hopefully, so world tour races, they automatically take world tour teams. But then there's always spots open for teams that are, if it's in France, they offer it to French teams. If it's the Vuelta, they offer it to Spanish teams. But with this pro team category, it will put us in this next level. So we'll be picked from first before they pick all the UCI Conti teams. So it's a really big step up, but it's also an important step because it will ensure we get to go to the big races next year. And so, with our goal on the Tour de France Femmes and the Olympics, it's just a way, and also good riders are looking to make that next step, right?
Yeah.
So it ensures that we get the top notch riders, and it also ensures that we provide the best level racing for them. So it's a win win.
Yeah. I want to step back a little bit, again, going off script here, just to talk in case folks don't know what you'd mentioned. You have sports directed a team before. For people who aren't familiar with cycling, what does that look like? On race day, can you maybe just paint a
Yeah.
picture of what it's like to be a sports director, herding these cyclists, ushering them
Yeah.
through the craziness of a race?
Yeah, I think it's great because now we have this Netflix series called Unchained, and you get to see like the good and bad of directors, but that's just like one little piece of the pie. The directors are the ones sitting in the team car in the front seat or the side or the passenger seat that are on the radios with the riders. They're handing bottles. They're giving directions like turning left, roundabout in 200 meters, blah, blah, blah. So they're giving all the race intel. But more than that, they are the glue that kind of keeps everything together when you're on the road. So our head director is Jillian Elsay. She was a former racer. She raced for Rally. She raced for HPH. So she has a lot of experience, but also a lot of patience. And I think your director has to be a patient person because what I say cycling is like the closest thing to a moving circus that you can imagine, right? All these moving pieces, all these moving parts, things are happening on the road, cars are breaking down, you know, somebody needs almond butter in Europe, which you can't get. But anyway, so your your director is literally in charge of all logistics, day-to-day planning, and just making sure like the team is in the right place at the right time for the start.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, right? Is like sometimes in Europe you look at the map and you think you're going one place and then you end up 50K away and you got to rush to the start. These things do happen. So your director is really like your team leader, although your director does not race, right? So your director is really your leader of the team, making sure everything happens. They have to go to managers meetings. They have to set all the logistics for the day. Our director sends out daily schedules the night before, and it's so great because I'm on all these text threads. We use WhatsApp. So I literally see everything that's happening. I wake up at 4 in the morning and I'm looking at massage schedules that our director puts out. So, the director, head director, and assistant directors have really hard jobs. It is a thankless job, I would say. It's one of the most important jobs in a team for sure because you can't function without it. All of the riders look to the director every day to see like what's the race plan? What's my role? Where are we going? Where's the van? Where do I get my nutrition, my recovery? It's so essential, but it's also one of the hardest jobs out there. And I've done it. And at my age now, I'm not really willing to go on the road like that. I was telling Kurt, my partner, I was like, it's a young person's job. You
Yeah.
have to have a lot of energy. But it is also sometimes the most rewarding job because when your team crosses the line first, when you have a successful race, they're the first person who's really there and sees it all happen. And it's very fulfilling to like see it all come together on that day.
Yeah, for anybody who's watched, like you said, Unchained or been paying attention to the men's tour, they usually give a shot of the team car, right? When their winner wins. And those
Yeah.
three folks in that car, they lose their minds because they are just so connected to what their rider has just done. There's so much passion
Yeah.
and just you can
And not
feel
to
how
mention they've been sitting in the team car for like six, seven
6 hours.
hours, you know? So
Yeah,
your whole like day is all about that finish, right? It is
yeah.
amazing. And there's a lot of explicit, I can't even say that word. Expletives that go on when the
Yes.
win happens or when it doesn't. And that is all really, really genuine. It's
Yeah.
authentic because
Yeah.
it's so emotional.
So much
Yeah.
passion there. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna dial it back a little bit here. We're winding down and turn it to
Sure.
Goo a little bit because it's been
Yeah.
my honor and pleasure to work with you since the inception of
Yeah.
Cynisca. You and I have ridden together over the years and have had a prior relationship to this. But so Goo Energy products are known for their role in endurance sports. Could you elaborate on how you integrate our gels, drinks, and other products into the team's nutrition strategy, especially during rigorous training sessions and competitive races? And are there like any favorite products of ours? This is a shameless Goo plug here.
Absolutely. And I know our favorite products because I
Okay.
talk to the girls all the time and I
Yeah.
use them too.
Yeah.
So I think your like new energy is so important to our team. Like you as an athlete, if you don't have the right nutrients, if you don't have the right products, if you don't have the calories, the carbs, all the things that are needed, your performance is not going to be anywhere near it needs to be, right? So our it's actually quite funny. We take a lot of care with what we provide. And it is like everything is laid out. I was just at our service course this past week and I got to see the organizational situations that are going on with the goo products and the tires and the helmets. And it's overwhelming because you're like, I just walked in there and everything has its own little box and and it's like so perfect. And I was just like, wow, I should have taken a picture for you actually. I was like, wow, this is exactly how it should be. And the girls come in for training. They go to the service course first. They pump up their tires. They pick out their nutrition. They stuff their pockets. And then, they go off on their ride. And it is funny because we do ask them, like when they come back, we're like, what did you eat on that ride? What did you get through? What did you use? Because it's important to know that they're fueling properly. Because we all know that you can't perform at your best if you're not fueling. And so we've taken a lot of care, a lot of interest into what they're using and how much they're using. And it is funny because some of their favorite products are the liquid energy, which I just used the other day on that gravel ride. I was like, God, this is amazing. I finished off that ride, no problem. So the liquid energy is one of the favorites. Obviously, the gels, I mean, that's their like go-to. They stuff their pockets with gels all the time because I think the liquid energy, you can only take so many of those per ride.
Yes, for sure.
The chews are like candy, right? Because they taste so good and they're always popping those. And then everything Roctane. So
Yeah.
our riders are all about the Roctane. They use it for the recovery. They use it for during. They use it, I think they just drink it in their cups when they're just sitting around the house waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been very interesting, and I think it's one of the things that we can't do without as a team, and we're very grateful to Goo to be that provider for us and supporting us. For the past 2 years,
Yeah.
it's been phenomenal, and so all of our girls use it, they all love it, and we're happy with it. So getting
Wonderful.
results from it, which is even
Yeah.
more important.
Well, yeah, and this is not part of the questions I sent you. And speaking of results, I mean, you guys have had some tremendous, let's brag a little bit here, some tremendous results this year. Like, I can't even
Yeah,
keep track, right, of the multiple national titles. You had Lauren Stevens win the 100 at
yep,
Unbound. Like, maybe just
yep,
tick off a few of the results that have rolled in the last month
yeah,
that speak
yeah.
to the quality of your program.
Yeah, I mean, we're super proud. Last year we won one race in 2023, our first year, and that was a great win. But like, we really made it. Back in December, we had a team camp, and we sat down and like, what's our goal for victories this year? And the girls were like, 5, 7, and I was like, I just yelled out, absolutely not. Like, we need to think bigger, better, like we're going to bring this home. And I knew with the squad we had, we were going to take a big step up this year. Lauren Stevens has obviously been a big part of that, like bringing the level up with her experience, her maturity in the sport. And so she started off the year with a couple bangs. She won Almeria. She came back and won a stage at Britannia. She's now she's kind of in the US right now doing gravel for the next bit before she goes to World. So she won Unbound 100. But then, like, not too far after that, we've had some great wins. We've won, and not at just stages. Our young rider Mara Roldan from Canada won 2 stages at Redlands. She was 3rd overall, which was huge because last year I was like, there's no way she's going to make this big jump, but she has. And then she won U23 time trial and road for Canada, which was huge, and ended up 3rd overall in the elite race, which is a big deal. We had Chloe Patrick win the US U23 crit championship. Nicole Steinmetz won U23 road champion, which was huge. I think she was 5th overall or 6th in the race, in the elite race. And then Fiona Magnan just won our Irish elite national road race and time trial. So, I mean, it's been great. And just a week ago in Portugal, Mara won a mountaintop finish in the stage. So it's just, and Ashley Fry got 3rd in the stage. So, I mean, we're a totally different team than last year, and it's been so exciting. And it's just really easy to get behind these ladies, these women, as people, as athletes, because they're really showing what they can do. And it's taken a village for sure. It's taken a lot of support, sponsor. I mean, for us to run our program is not cheap. I mean, it's been a big investment, and we are continuing to up that investment through the next 4 years. I mean, our real goal, we feel like we could, I think, feel good about what we've done is if, we have a program through 2028 Olympics, LA Olympics, since they're here in the US, we know we can produce some Olympians. And I know in our big goal, which I'm not afraid to talk about, because I think it puts it out there into the world. Our big goal is to produce the first North American women's Tour de France champion. I mean, we're going to say that by 2028. It's a big goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, if there was ever a team that could do it right now, it is ours, and I'm going to say that with confidence because I do feel like we are the future of women's cycling, and we're not afraid to put that out there. I mean, we're looking to the future. I think we've got what it takes. Our staff is incredible. Our sponsors are incredible, and our riders are dedicated and passionate and loyal. And I think that's what it takes. And we're really excited about the future. So, I'm not afraid to say that it's coming. It's going to happen.
I love it. I love your confidence. That's great. Yeah. Be proud, be confident.
You don't believe
Throw it out there. I know.
It'll never happen.
Exactly. Throw it out there.
Yeah.
So final question, and you kind of touched on this, you guys, need financial support, obviously, to continue to grow. So if folks would like to support the team in your efforts, are there other ways that they can do that? Can we point them in the direction of a way that they could support Cynisca?
Yeah, absolutely. So we created a Chariot Club about a year ago, and that is different levels of support, right? So you could come in at $25. You can come in at $1 million. So there's a lot of different things with some different benefits. The great thing is, like, we have this chateau, the service course in France, and we really like to use it. We like to bring people there. We like to show people what we really are about. We feel like our best connection with people is if you come and see what we're doing on the ground. And so through support, we invite people over all the time. We want people to get behind our riders and really, like, become fans, and then join our team. Like, come ride with us. Come be an advisor for the team. Like, we have an advisory board we're building right now that we want people who are really invested in cycling to be part of. So our website, cyniscacycling.org, which we're a 501c3, has everything on there, and there is a button for Chariot Club. So I would ask that you go and help out the team, do what you can, because we are really building the future. And it takes, especially now that we're having that 2-pronged team, the pro team, the Conti team for development, it's a great opportunity for you to get behind riders who you want to see the future, maybe win the Women's Tour de France, in a couple years. So, I would just encourage you to go there, read what we're about, come on a trip with us. Like, I'm actually holding a fundraiser for Cynisca September 17th through the 23rd. We're going to go to the chateau. We're going to do all the riding in the Pyrenees. It's going to be a blast. So
I know I got that email and I was like, ooh, could I call that a work expense?
you absolutely can go and call it a
I
work
know,
trip.
I know, I know.
Well, and you can bring Vanessa for yoga.
I wish I could.
I know.
Well, Robin, thank you so much, obviously,
Yeah.
for your passion and your experience and what you're doing to help raise
Yeah.
the next level of women's professional cycling. We really appreciate it here on this side at GU, and I just thank you for your time, and I wish you well.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it's really important, just to have this type of talk so people can understand more what's going on in women's cycling. So I want to say thank you, and thank you to GU for supporting us and being a partner.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, let's see here. How do I stop this?